Hey there, folks. Welcome to Nome and Beyond, our exploration of our time in Nome, Alaska, and things beyond. Hey there, folks. So I haven't done a Nome and Beyond video in quite some time. I still have to post the second half of the Driving the Alcan video, which I will probably just redo the entire thing. The first video had some issues with it that I didn't like, so I might just start all over. But this video and the next few videos I do are going to be more story time. I got a lot of comments or questions about how we ended up in Nome and why we were in Nome. And the story's kind of nutty, the process and everything that we went through to get there. I never thought I'd be going through anything like that or doing that kind of a drastic move in my life. And I'm so glad we did. But there was a lot that went into it. And so the next few videos, I want to tell the story. So if you want, story time.
Story time.
So in 2019, my wife was at the point of her doctoral education that she needed to start looking for an internship for her doctorate in psychology. So part of that is that you have to match to a particular site. You don't get to decide where you want to go. You pick from a bunch of sites, and there's a massive algorithm for the pool of all people that are applying for internships across the United States. And they match people to locations based on what that person ranked, how other people ranked. And it's this huge kind of... It's a huge deal. Some people don't get the one that they really wanted to go to. Some people don't match at all and have to go through the process again to try and match to a site. So as part of doing this matching process, or I had to do a bunch of interviews. And you couldn't do them just in your local area. You had to do them outside of your area, or at least the school she went to required that you did them outside of your area. So I don't think these are in order of how she did the interviews. They're just from my memory, the places that she interviewed. So the first place that I'm going to list here is Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She went there, I think it was with the VA. The community just seemed way too conservative. She was like, I don't know if I want to live here. So she went there, she put it on her ranking, but it wasn't her top ranking. So another place she interviewed was downtown St. Paul. I can't remember the name of the organization or the clinic that she interviewed with, but she said the building was gorgeous. They had like vaulted ceilings and nice offices, historical building. She was really impressed with it. I don't remember where she ranked it on her list, but I believe it made her list. She also interviewed at Hazelden, Betty Ford, the main treatment center, big one in the nation. She interviewed there, and on the way there, she hit a deer that was hit by the vehicle in front of her and busted up the bottom of my truck. This will come into play later in the story. So the next place was Anchorage, Alaska. She originally was potentially going to travel up there by herself, but I was like, you know what? I'd like to go to Alaska, so I went with her. So we stayed in a hotel, very nice. It had like a separate living room from a bedroom. It had a kitchenette. It was really, really nice. We went to a bunch of restaurants near the hotel that were really, really good. It was a good experience. We kind of wandered around that part of Anchorage. There wasn't a lot there. It wasn't residential. It was very much hotels and office buildings and things like that. So while she was interviewing in Anchorage, I stayed back in the hotel, and I brought along my laptop and a little mini MIDI controller, and just kind of noodled with music while she was at her interview. When she got back from her interview, we probably went out to dinner, that kind of stuff. And then we had to get ready for the next day, because the next day we were flying up to Nome. There was an orientation or like a tour up in Nome for prospective interns. So this is where the fun of this interview began. So we fly up to Nome, we get off the airplane, we're in the airport, and Aura figures out kind of who her group is that she's supposed to go do her orientation with. And I was like, well, that's her thing. This is her professional kind of thing. So I'm just going to go figure out what to do myself. So I wander out into the parking lot, and cabs in Nome, like the one I got in was just a pickup, but he was kind of waiting out there. And maybe he had taxi on the side. I can't remember. So anyways, I kind of pointed at him and shrugged my shoulders. You free? And he goes, come on. So I get in the truck, and I'm like, I don't suppose you take cards. And he's like, nope, cash only. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I pull out my wallet, and I'm like, oh, thank God. How much is it? He goes, $7. And I'm like, oh, God. I had a $10 bill. So I lucked out. So I asked him, mind you, Aura's off with her group here. They're gathering and trying to start their day. I asked him, is there like a coffee shop or something in town? And he's like, yeah, I can take you to the coffee shop. So he takes me to the coffee shop. I'm laden down with my laptop and all sorts of stuff in there, the controller. I think I had a book. So there I am. I walk into the coffee shop. I think the temperature outside was negative, maybe a little over negative, or a little lower than negative 20 below. I think it was like maybe negative 22 below with wind chill that day. And I had on a puffy winter coat, and I had a sweater with a turtleneck that Aura had gotten me. So I get into the coffee shop, and I order a coffee, and I'm standing at the counter, and I ask the servers, hey, is there anything for me to do in town? My wife's in town doing an orientation for Norton Sound Healthcare, and I've got like 5 hours on my hands that I don't have anything to do with. And the two girls look at each other like, I don't know. And they finally said, well, there's Pingo, which is like a little restaurant next door. And the other one goes, well, there's the museum. And that was it. Like, that was all there was to do. And yeah, I mean, if you're from out of town and it's dead of winter, there's really not too much to do. There was the visitor center as well. I never went in there that day. So anyway, I sat there at the coffee shop, drank my coffee, did a little bit of work because I could get on the internet and I could do, some messaging with my team back in Minnesota, in Chicago. And then I got bored of that, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to the museum. So I pack my stuff up and I go outside. Actually, I walk down Front Street for a while, just kind of checking it out and, walk back. And I'm like, all right, let's head out to the museum. And I remember having to pull my turtleneck up because my face would get so cold, and then my turtleneck would freeze with my breath, and so I'd have to pull my turtleneck down and let it melt, and then I would just keep doing that. And I remember I was looking at my phone, wandering around like, okay, what street am I on? Which is really funny because after having lived there, Nome is very small. It's like very small. I probably could have found it without, but I was cold, and I was like, I need to get there fast. So I finally got to the museum, and I did I walked around the museum, checked it out. This is kind of neat. But that took me maybe 30 minutes, and I still had about 5 hours to kill, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So connected to the museum is the city library, the public library. So I wandered into there, and I went and sat down in a seat. And I was there for a while, and the librarian came up and said, yeah, you probably shouldn't sit in this chair. The kids are getting out of school soon, and they usually use this area. And I'm like, okay, now where do I go? And I said, is there anywhere I can set up and dink around on my laptop? And she said, yeah, you can sit in that room there. So they went into this little side room, and I sat in there and just dinked around creating a song, which is the song, hopefully, if I can find it, that is in the background of this video. I also helped them move some chairs around. They were moving chairs around, so I was like, I can help out. I don't have anything to do. So I helped them out with that. Something to do. And then after I had monkeyed around with this song for a while, I was like, well, I should probably head over. I don't know what time they're all supposed to meet up. So they're all supposed to end their day at Airport Pizza, a little pizza joint in town. And I didn't know what time they were going to meet there. So I was like, so I don't miss them. I should probably run over there. And I was hungry by that time, so I ran over to Airport Pizza, ordered some nachos, and sat there dinking around on my phone. Eventually, the tour comes in, and Aura comes up to me, or actually, the tour comes in, and they all sit down. And somebody noticed me sitting over in my booth, and were like, "Is that your husband?" To my wife, and he goes, "That's him."
That's him. That's him.
So, like, come on over here, sit over here. Everyone had been so worried about me the whole time because they were like, he just wandered off in negative 20-degree weather. We don't know where he is. Oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, it's a small town. I wasn't like going to die out there. I mean, there's places you can go to warm up. So anyways, they were all very impressed that I was just like, well, okay, I'm going to go off an adventure. So then we sat there and we talked. I talked a little bit with that group, and it was nice, and it was kind of cool. And then the trip was over. We got back on the plane and flew down to Anchorage. And then we had an extra day before we were supposed. No, that's not true. Before we went to Nome, we had a day that we just had free in Anchorage. So we wandered around. We walked down to the Anchorage Museum. We wandered around a little mall nearby, just kind of checking out the area, that kind of thing. Yeah, the walk to the Anchorage Museum was a bit of a trek in the snow because the sidewalks weren't all shoveled and stuff like that. And we were very much amazed at the speed with which Anchorage drivers drive on the roads that aren't salted. They're maybe sanded. And people are just flying. We were like, wow, like that's crazy. Coming from Midwest, upper Midwest, the Twin Cities in Minnesota, we're used to driving in crappy, snowy roads. But I don't really drive like that. On the other hand, we don't generally have winter tires up here. We have all-season tires, and they have sometimes studded tires, so they can cruise on that stuff. I digress. We went to the museum. Very cool. We were trying to wander around and find some other places downtown, but we were just like, let's go back. We were both hungry, so we wandered back and got dinner. And then after Nome, the next day after we got back from Nome, our itinerary was such that we were supposed to go to, I believe, Tyler, Texas the next day. We were supposed to hop on a plane the next morning, go to Tyler, Texas. She was supposed to do the interviews take forever, however long interview, 5 hours or whatever, 4 hours. And then we were supposed to crash, get up the next morning, fly to, I can't remember where it was, somewhere in Pennsylvania, Lebanon or something like that, Pennsylvania, do the same thing, then go to Tennessee, and she'd do the same thing, and then we would head back to Minnesota. So after having gone up to Anchorage, gone up to Nome, she had done a few other sites on her own, we were like, we're too tired to go to Tyler, and then Pennsylvania, and then Tennessee, like, screw it. So we didn't do it. So she just ranked all the sites that she had actually gone to. And then it was a mating game. She sent in her rankings, and it was a waiting game. I can't remember how long it took for them to match, but we found out that she had matched to Nome. So the thing about matching is if you match, you almost have no recourse to back out of that. Not without really screwing up your career. Because if you back out of the internship that you said you wanted, it looks really bad to employers that you aren't able to follow through, right? So we were going to Nome, or she was going to Nome. So she matched, and I remember I was sitting in my lazy boy. She was at her computer. Actually, no, I think she woke me up and said I matched to Nome, and my immediate reaction was like, oh shit, okay, now what? So after it kind of sunk in, all sorts of questions came to my mind. Do you go up there alone for the year? Can we handle being apart for a year? Mind you, we owned our own home. It was full of our stuff. We had 2 cars. None of that is transferable up to Nome. You aren't going to take your car. There's no way we could have carted all our stuff up there. So it's like, well, do you go alone and then come back after your year is up, and then we still got our house and all that kind of stuff. The next question was, will my job allow me to work remote? Do I need to find a job in Nome? What jobs are there in Nome? Are there other remote jobs in Alaska that I can take if my job doesn't want me to do it? All these things going on. What do we do with our house? What do we do with our stuff if I come along? So, to keep this video in a decent amount of time and not go too long, the answers to those questions and more will be in the next video. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It helps me out, gets me more videos in front of it, gets my videos in front of more people. Thanks for watching. Bye.